Russian missiles hitting Kyiv, Ukraine. European Union and British offices were damaged in this attack yesterday. And tragically, 19 people, 4 of them children, were killed. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky posting the Russians are not choosing to end the war, only new strikes. Let's bring in our expert panel to weigh in on all of this. Pleased to have former CIA analyst, former Trump National Security Council Chief of Staff, and now the Vice President of the America First Policy Institute, Fred Fleitz, with us. Alongside him, foreign policy expert Harley Lippman. Gentlemen, a pleasure to have you both. These were serious strikes last night, as we just mentioned, hitting diplomatic offices. And ahead of this, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff expected to meet with representatives from Ukraine tomorrow in New York, discussing security guarantees. So if there are no security guarantees, and Putin so far has resisted European, NATO troops in that, Fred, it seems that President Trump's warning of an economic war, which were his words, will be imminent. Your take?
Well, I would say that President Trump is doing everything outside of war.
I didn't know if you were frozen, Fred. I was asking Fred, but if Fred, you have something on that, is the imminent economic war? I mean, the sanctions that are now imposed on India, it does seem like, there is very little time for Putin to make a big decision here. Harley, why don't you take it? We'll try to reestablish. Oh, he has a delay. That's what I'm being told. Okay, sorry, I didn't know that. So let's try this one more time, Fred, and I will wait for you.
Well, I think that President Trump is doing everything possible to try to resolve the war with Ukraine and Russia. He started with the idea of a ceasefire. Putin rejected it. And now he's trying to send a signal to Putin that economic war is going to take place, starting with India, the imposition of 50% tariffs because they buy cheap oil from Russia, which is really getting in the way of peace negotiations. And I think going to your correspondent about Gaza, if I may, and Yemen and Syria, I think the real message here is that Israel has learned a lesson on October 7th, that they have to be proactive and go after the bad guys early on and not wait for them to attack Israel.
Exactly. I mean, so we have Yemen, obviously, if they take out some of the leadership of the Houthis, in addition to now basically taking out leaders of Hezbollah, leaders of Hamas. I mean, Harley, it does look like we talk about Iran, the head of the snake here. This is a real opportunity for a more normalization of Middle East. We know Saudi Arabia with the Houthis have dealt with that brutal civil war. Finally, President Trump is seeing, an opportunity here, not just for Israel, but for the entire Middle East to try and move forward, not just to be, dealing with terrorism, but deals that he's been striking in his historic trip over there as well.
You said it very well. This is what was lacking in the last administration. They dealt with the Middle East in terms of management conflict instead of management resolution. They didn't go to finally end conflict and create an environment where all nations could prosper. This is going to help all people in the Middle East, Arabs as well as Israelis. You have to make sure you have deterrence against Iran. I think at some point regime change is going to be necessary because they are the centers of world terrorism and they are creating all these wars and conflict in the region. And President Trump, in close alliance with Israel, is really taking very effective action and making meaningful change in the region. And I think it's about time, and we should get behind the president on this. This is really heralding good news.
Harley, I want to get your reaction to Peter Navarro, President Trump's trade advisor, referring to Prime Minister of India, Modi, as this Modi's war here when it comes to Russia selling India. They're buying Russian oil. Let's play this clip here.
This is a mature democracy with intelligent people running it. And they look us bald-faced in the eye on the tariff part and say, we don't have the highest tariffs in the world, when, in fact, they do. There's no dispute about that if you look at the numbers. And then they say, oh, we're not going to stop buying Russian oil. Now, what does that mean?
You know, it's interesting the public shaming that he's doing of Modi, because we also heard Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on CNBC last week talking about how they buy this oil from Russia, fund the war, but then they upcharge it. And he called it, you know, the arbitrage here. So, I mean, to be outspoken in this way, obviously, that's another back channel way President Trump's trying to tell India, you know, we're not going to let you continue to fund this war as well.
Yeah, I think the noose is tightening on Russia. And, you know, India is an ally of ours.
Yes.
And it's really important that they get on board with this program because, as you just mentioned earlier, Russia continues to fire drones into Ukraine. They're killing innocent civilians. You know, leverage is what matters with Putin. And economically, he's selling oil, cheap oil, and this is funding his war to China and India. So Trump is focusing on India now.
Yeah,
and I think Peter Navarro is spot on.
And I'm not so sure that it's going to completely damage, you know, relationships with Modi, as we saw him sitting with President Trump, one of the first, you know, to visit since his inauguration. But obviously, both men are looking at trying to, with Modi, a lot of pressure. Now he's telling Indians to buy Indian because of the tariffs. But I think there's a way forward, and I especially think the hope for peace is still alive. Harley Lippman, thank you so much. Great to have you with us. Really appreciate your analysis on these topics today. Thank you.